Imagine commanding a corporate entity so massive it moves markets, yet remembering the day you couldn't scrape together loose change to survive the afternoon. That is the exact mathematical reality of a man who currently controls an 800 crore rupee enterprise, but who once found himself entirely paralyzed by the inability to source just 2,000 rupees. His name is Sanjay Bhasin. His timeline holds both the absolute zenith of commercial success and the crushing basement of financial ruin. True financial gravity is measured by the sheer, suffocating depth of the hole you are forced to climb out of. For Sanjay, the bottom of that hole was precisely 14 crore rupees deep. At that depth, the pressure comes from every conceivable angle. Banks aggressively demanding repayment, furious suppliers appearing at the door, people he used to joke with suddenly issuing threats and public insults. This diagram shows the anatomy of a debt trap. A central liability, 14 crore rupees, acts as a sinkhole, while vectors of pressure from institutional debt and shattered social ties compress the center simultaneously. Escape appears mathematically impossible. What the math doesn't show is the profound isolation. Sanjay absorbed this daily humiliation entirely alone, deliberately hiding the severity of the crisis from his family to keep their spirits intact. Massive debt works by dismantling a person's social dignity and identity, forcing an internal collapse that goes far deeper than any legal filing. At his absolute lowest point, Sanjay made a calculated decision. He stopped fearing the debt and decided to fight it. He realized a zero in a bank account is a temporary external metric that only dictates poverty if the mind governing it is entirely depleted. This split-screen balance sheet illustrates the shift. The left financial ledger is anchored by deep negative red numbers. The right is a psychological ledger. To offset the external deficit, Sanjay weaponized his internal traits. The right side fills with green assets: resilience, courage, accountability. A deeply negative net worth only becomes a fatal condition if it is matched by a completely bankrupt state of mind. To rebuild, he had to step right back into the friction of the real world. He returned to the chaotic, high-energy streets of Delhi to open a tiny, rudimentary office, but his self-belief stayed steady, and slowly he used that face-to-face friction to prove he was still reliable. Evading conflict destroys trust. Walking directly into the fire of personal accountability is the only known mechanism to forge it anew. Sanjay executed a strategy of compounding trust. By showing up every single day and delivering on microscopic promises, he began to chip away at that 14 crore mountain. This chart shows how that recovery behaves over time. The value line stays painfully flat and deep in the negative for a long, grueling duration. But once that baseline of trust is fully restored, the trajectory curves sharply upward into massive growth. That agonizingly slow initial phase of rebuilding relationships resulted in the complete dismantling of his debt, and eventually the organic growth of an 800 crore rupee enterprise. Surviving the 14 crore deficit forced him to build the exact operational discipline and strategic patience required to manage an 800 crore empire. Looking back on the ordeal, Sanjay notes that the universe sometimes breaks you down completely to force you to rebuild yourself with a much stronger architecture. The destruction of a business entity does not equal the destruction of the entrepreneur who built it. Resilience is the ultimate form of wealth. It is the one asset that cannot be liquidated or seized by any bank. Financial ruin is always a temporary state of affairs, provided your psychological capital remains fiercely intact.